We are on Yerushalmi Berachos stuff Yud, and I'm going to share with you one ha'ara on the blot itself, and then one general ha'ara about Yerushalmi, which will be L'zecher Nishmas, the person that wrote that ha'ara, unfortunately, who just passed away. The Mishnah is talking about the difference when you're allowed to say Kriya Shema, and it says, when do you say Kriya Shema in the morning? Mishiachar Metchilas 11. And there's a machlokes between different Tanam. Rabbi Eliezer says Tchilas Lakarti, or Kartan, if you have a different girsa, etc. And so there's actually a very fascinating reading of the pasuk if you see how the Yerushalmi breaks it up. But we know that Tosas actually brings this down in Berachos in the Bavli. He argues with Rashi, who translates just the two colors as between white and Tchelas. The Yerushalmi brings Bein Tchelas Shabbat, Lavan Shabbat, in the tzitzis itself. That's the differentiation. That time is the time frame. It's very, very fascinating. So the Gemara says that what's the reason of the Rabbanan? That they say the difference is that Shema is between the Tchelas strings itself, because the pasuk says Re'isam Oso, which is the pasuk in Shema itself. U'zachartem is called Mitzvah Hashem. You should remember all the Mitzvah Hashem, and the word Re'isam Oso is referring to the tzitzis itself. So you see that built into when you say Shema is Re'isam Oso, that you have to see the tzitzis itself and just pay very close attention, because we're going to translate the word Oso as three different things. Okay, Re'isam Oso. One pshat is going to be about the tzitzis. Another pshat, it's going to be the second pshat is that it's going to be referring to Hashem Kaviyachol, and then the third pshat is going to be it's referring to your friend. So just follow me through, because this is exactly what it is. The Yerushalmi takes very simplified ways of looking at psukim that is just fascinating. You don't find in the Bavli. The Bavli's expositions are usually a lot more complex, and you'll find very, very fascinating Midrashi Chazal. So the first pasuk, the first Manda Amar that says that you follow Re'isam Oso means Mina Samachlo. It's talking about the tzitzis itself, so you could tell there's white and there is the tchelis, the purple color. So that's one pshat. The other pshat is Rev Eliezer, that he says that Shema is between the tchelis and green wool. So what's that pshat? He says Re'isam Oso, so that specifically refers to the dye that's in the tchelis mingled among the wool. Okay, Ayin Sham. There's another pshat in the name of Rameir that it says Re'isam Oso, that we darshan that it means that if someone is Mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis, it's as if he's Mekal Pnei Shechina. And then we explain the famous thing of the Gemara Menachos brings a very similar drasha, although it's a little different, and there are midrashim that say other things as well. Tchilas is Doma Liyam, Yam is Doma La'asavim, Asavim is Doma Turakia, which brings it back to the Kisei HaKavod, which is Safir. So it's referring to Re'isam Oso, it's reminding you of Hashem. But this other pshat, Acherim says Re'isam Oso, and this is where it's just such a brilliant way of looking at it that the Bavli doesn't usually use this style, and it's just interesting to bring up. And that is, what does Oso mean? It means you should see your friend, him. When is that? We know this shir that's brought down that when you could see your friend, which the Bavli and Yerushalmi both agree, I believe, as far as I understand, that it's not necessarily your best friend who you can tell anywhere, and not necessarily someone that you don't know well who you can't tell anyone, but anyone that is like you're semi-familiar with him within Dalet Amos. But look how it's reading the pasuk. Re'isam Oso is you should see your friend. There's a lot to say about that, but one thing, just in simplicity, is that that's what the pasuk is saying. Re'isam Oso. That's when the time of Shema, that's when you're supposed to say Shema. Now, I want to point out another thing, which is that here we have this drasha that on the one hand it's referring to the tzitzis itself, which is probably what the Pashup Shah of the pasuk means. There's another drasha that it's referring to Hashem. That's what Oso means. You see Hashem. And we have another drasha means your friend. It's very fascinating that somehow seeing Hashem Kaviyachol is put in this idea of seeing your friend. But we know that Hashem wants us to treat our friends with tremendous respect. And we see that even this word Oso, it could be used in reference to Hashem, and it could also be used in reference to seeing a friend. There's another point, which is an interesting ha'ara, which is that this whole pasuk that we're learning at the time to say the whole Shema, right? So it's being learned from the last parsha of Shema, which is different than the other parshas of Shema, and yet it's teaching on the entire Shema. So we're learning it about we're learning it regarding tzitzis, and it's teaching us about the first two paragraphs as well. Okay. So now I wanted to share one general ha'ara, which is a fascinating ha'ara, and there's a lot to develop on it. And unfortunately, we just lost a very, very big tzaddik, Rafael Cohn, the body of Shulchan Zatzal. And in his introduction to the Yerushalmi, his Haskama that he wrote for Art School, he writes a very beautiful thing that I think has a lot of depth and is worth elaborating on. And I want to share it, and it should be a Ilui Nishmaso. It's famous that the pasuk B'Tzion b'Mishpat Tipada is B'Gematria Tzion b'Mishpat Tipada is the Gematria Talmud Yerushalmi, which is a beautiful thing that Mashiach will come in the Zechus of Talmud Yerushalmi. But there's also another part of that drasha, which is B'Shavel B'Tzdaka. That refers to Talmud Bavli, and that's the Gematria. B'Shavel B'Tzdaka is the same Gematria of Talmud Bavli. And Rafael Cohen Zatzal, who Klal Yisrael is still reeling from his loss, he says that there's something very fascinating. And that is that whenever the Yerushalmi, often, I should say, when the Yerushalmi brings someone's opinion, this person holds this person holds that. So it says, Adaita to Rabbi Bone, Rabbi Bone holds this. And the word daita means das. It means logic, his mind. His mind holds this. But usually when the Bavli quotes someone's opinion, it says, Aliba to Rabbi Kiva, this. Aliba to Rabbi Yishmael, that. So Aliba means on their heart. So there's an interesting discussion here of head and heart. Okay? So what does that mean? So he says that Chazal in Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed Chasman Aleph, they say that the body of Adam HaRishon was created from Bavel, and his head was created from Eretz Yisrael. So just pause that. So the body, which the Maharsha brings down, includes his heart, that was created in Bavel, and that's why the Bavli, whenever it talks about, and obviously Adam HaRishon is Adam HaShalem, who's B'Mekayim the whole Torah. It doesn't say that, but that's what he's understanding. He represents us, right? The Yalkut Ruveni brings down that if you say, it's not my fault, I didn't eat Fnei Tzedus, why am I being punished? He says, no, every single neshama was nichlal inside Adam, and we all ate Fnei Tzedus, and we all did that sin, and therefore we're all suffering from our sin that we're being misakin. We know the Avos were misakin, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were misakin Adam in their way as well, and the Emos were misakin Chava, etc. They're all buried together. They were all misakin each other. Okay, so he says that that's a pshat, that Adam Rishon, so his heart came from Babel, so Mamela, that's Aliba, that's his heart. That's how it tells you one opinion of the Torah. And from and Adam Rishon's head came from Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it says Adaita. And he also points out that this also explains the pasuk itself, because Sion b'Mishpat. How is Sion going to be brought back? How is Mashiach going to be brought here? Eretz Yisrael, when it has Mishpat. Mishpat is in the mind. It's a logical thing. It's logical that this has to be this way. This is what Mishpatim are logical laws that make sense that the world has to go this way. Ve'ela Mishpatim, Asher Tasim Lefneim, they're very easy to understand. These are laws that help society run. But V'Shavel B'Tzdaka, the part that refers to Talmud Bavli, is the kindness. Tzedakah is kindness. And that's in the heart, which is Keneged Yerushalmi. Now, one thing I wanted to add to this and to develop in his words, which he might be being wrong, is it's very interesting because remember how we said that Yerushalmi is Noach and Makal Noam, it's very pleasant, whereas the Bavli is very explosive. So on the one hand, we're saying that the Yerushalmi is very has that logical aspect to it, and then we're saying that the Bavli has the lave part. So it's interesting. Lave could be passion, but the brain also could be very brainy in the sense that it's asking a lot of questions, and the heart also could be very. The heart also could be very responsive and caring and makal noam. So it's interesting that really both have both components. That there's an element of logic and fierceness, and there's also an element of logic and calmness. And so if you think about it, really all the Torah has both aspects of it. There's a noam of the Yerushalmi that's calm, but there's also a logical part of this is the mishpat, and we're going to get to the halacha properly, and it has that balance. Ben Yoda writes this explicitly that why does a Kohen Gadol have to have? He has to be gadol from his friends and Osher and Noi and all these things, because he says if you're just lacking in those in let's say Osher, so then it doesn't show that he has all the milas, that he uses money properly. He just doesn't have money. So if he has it and he uses it properly, that's the greatest thing. Same thing with his beauty, if he uses it for the right thing, and his wisdom. So too here we have the Yerushalmi has an element of mishpat, of just coming down, but it still has a noam to it, and the Bavli has a heart to it, even though it has a Molchamta Shel Torah in it. And I think that's a very beautiful thing and a very, very beautiful balance. And I think that someone who taught so much Torah to Klal Yisrael, I'm Makir Tov to Badei Shulchan for his amazing svarim that he wrote on Hilchos Basar V'Chalav, and got many of us through our smicha programs, and just amazing stuff. They say that Rabbi Yashiv used to only answer his shilas in his when he got much older, and he didn't have the strength to write many shilas, but he held very, very highly of him, and his Yerushalmi comes out in this farm. So he's an amazing person, and this is just a beautiful ara, and it should be Lil Nishmaso, and we should see him with Mashiach coming here, be Amen.